According to one study, 70% of harmful emissions from a vehicle occur in the first 30 seconds of operation. Engineers are always trying new ways to reduce these emissions by using different strategies to warm up the engine and sensors faster. As technicians, many drivability problems start with the saying, "It only does it when it's cold." Understanding what happens when an engine is cold is essential to solving many problems. In the days of carburetors and distributors, a cold start required the driver to set the choke by pressing the accelerator to the floor. The choke plate would close off part of the horn of the carburetor to reduce the air entering the carburetor and richen up the mixture. At the same time, the quick idle cam would rise the idle speed, and a small door in the snorkel of the air cleaner would close to pull the air from the inlet around the exhaust manifold. Some systems would even bypass the ballast resistor for the ignition coil to create a hotter spark while cranking. This was not an exact science. As for the warm-up times, it depended on the ambient temperature. Also, the choke might take up to 5 minutes to disengage to give decent drivability. So what happens on a modern engine with port or direct injection when it has to start on a cold day? The first thing to remember is that the oxygen sensor must achieve operating temperatures to detect oxygen levels in the exhaust stream. To get the oxygen sensor working faster, the sensor has a heater circuit. Air-fuel ratio sensors have a larger heater and can heat the sensing element to higher temperatures than compared to a normal oxygen sensor. The heater circuit uses a pulse width modulated signal that uses a duty cycle. When the engine is first started, well, it might have a 90 to 100% duty cycle to warm up the sensor. After the engine is warmed up, some heater circuits will continue to operate at lower duty cycles to keep the sensor in the optimal temperature. When the oxygen sensor is cold, the engine management system goes into open loop operation. This mode uses preset parameters to determine how fuel is injected into the engine to get it started and keep it running with a smooth idle. Some systems will use coolant, air, or even ambient temperature sensors to detect what it should be doing during that initial startup. Some startup strategies will manage the amount of oxygen and fuel available to the catalytic converter so it can warm up faster. Once the operating temperature is reached, the system will go into closed loop operation. In this mode, the oxygen sensors trim the fuel. In other words, it's the primary sensor. Modern fuel systems are very sophisticated when it comes to cold starts. Some systems will regulate the flow of coolant to the block and head to reduce cold start emissions. Other systems, well, they might use coolant stored in a thermos-type container to reduce the warm-up times even further. In the case of hybrids, the internal combustion engine might not be used until the motor, battery, and inverter have created enough heat to warm the engine. Another cold start improvement has been ignition systems. With control over the individual coils, it is possible to control the timing and even the number of sparks to improve the combustibility of the cold air-fuel mixture. Even spark plugs have evolved with high ignitability designs to expose more of the electrodes to the combustion chamber. So what do you do when a repair order states when the vehicle is first started in the morning or it only does it when it is cold? The first step is to document the complaint or condition. For some cases, it might help to know the ambient temperature when the condition occurred. Another great piece of information is the freeze frame data. This data can include the coolant temperature, if it was in closed or open loop operation, and even the engine speed. This data is captured when the code is set and often is saved even if the code is not currently active. The next is to do some research. Often, some readiness monitors are linked to specific temperatures for coolant during the open loop operation. This can be found in the theory and operation section of the service information. Also, check for TSPs. Often the remedy to the condition, it's going to be software and a reprogramming session. If you are still stumped, you might have to replicate the condition at your shop. This might require leaving the vehicle overnight for a good cold soak. This can be difficult because the ambient temperature is not under your control. I'm Andrew Markell. Thank you very much.